All right, so we are live. So welcome everybody who could join us. We appreciate you being here. For those who don't know me, I am Cassidy Fry. I'm the MSA board member, emerging board member, chair of online panels, also part of social media with MSA. So welcome. Today we're going to talk to the artist involved in our MSA Select show that's in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So we're going to give them an opportunity to talk to their work, but we're also going to talk to the juror today, Coordinator Johnson. So I would like to welcome Courtney at this time. If you could take over and kind of get us started, say a little bit about the exhibition, and so on. So thank you all so much for being here.
Thanks, Cassidy, and thank you, Mid-South Ceramics Alliance. I appreciate being chosen to juror. My name is Courtney ADAIR Johnson. I'm presently the gallery director at Tennessee State University and an artist in Nashville, Tennessee. So I wrote a little bit. We'll see, like I might go off script, but some of the things I was thinking about in choosing the work and in my own practice. But I wanted to start us off with a quote from Toni Morrison. And it says, "I want to remind us all that art is dangerous. I want to remind you of the history of artists who have been murdered, slaughtered, imprisoned, chopped up, refused entrance. The history of art, whether it's in music or written or what have you, has always been bloody because dictators and people in office and people who want to control and deceive know exactly the people that will disrupt their plans." Wow. I look at artists as those role as a disruptor. I think we're great at problem solving, and that's what I'm drawn to as an artist. We are and have been at war for most of our lives. I think we can all relate to that subject. We can be very dismissive in the United States, one privilege, another. It's happening in other places, and we have most of the resources we need here to survive and thrive. But resources is the key word. I believe that is one of the most important things that we can consider. I'm a reuse artist, and I do believe war and resources are undeniably linked. We are and have been fighting for resources, be it land or natural resources. How am I using or utilizing resources beyond even your art, but especially your art? And I'm looking at everything through that angle. I don't always succeed, but I try. And so I love artists and art that considers resources in the environment in the conversation, sometimes subtle, and other times it can be more in your face, but in the conversation. And that's the art that drives me to curate, to support and encourage creating. That's the world I want to see. Another theme so art as disruptors is a theme that I sort of came to the show with. And then I walked away thinking about the imagining of a new world. And I'm always thinking that way. I'm super woo-woo. I love spirituality and extremely optimistic at most times. So there's New Earth concept in spirituality. And it's a world where we go back to the land and to love. And I feel like artists, we have this beautiful, unique ability to reimagine, use materials and ideas in new ways, problem solve and question. We are dangerous to those who don't want us to question the status quo. So to have conversations in spaces and places, the ability to heal and create movement, old and new, unknown, alien, and known. So after seeing the show, these are some of the elements that I was thinking about beforehand and then have like since emerged. And is Asia here now? I was going to transition to her work, but I don't see Mathis.
This moment not. So I will go ahead and screen share though, and we will get moving through a slideshow.
Because it was a perfect like
No.
transition into sort of my thoughts. But we can wait until she comes, or I could read. I really loved from her artist statement. She had said, in my sculpting, I turn again and again towards addressing the problem of being disconnected from the land and wild creatures. Because without this connection, it seems impossible to be our full human selves. And that I thought was super resonates with me as my, woo-woo reused self.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see her in here right now.
And I can move on to the next, or I can read her bio.
Let's go ahead and do that just in case she doesn't join.
Bio.
Yeah.
Nationally exhibited artist working in Nashville, Tennessee, Asia Mathis. And I'd seen her work in Tennessee, involved with Tennessee craft for years. So it was beautiful to be able to curate her work in the show. She earned her Bachelor's of Fine Arts from Middle Tennessee State University in 1999. Asia spent the next few years showing at local galleries in the Nashville area and high-end arts and crafts fairs. 2009, her first child was born, and she spent the next several years full-time mothering. Asia returns to studio life in 2018. Her work was featured in Best of Tennessee Craft exhibition in the Tennessee State Museum, and she created a solo show in 2022 for the Appalachian Center for Craft. In recent months, Asia's work has been part of a gallery showing at the Folk Art Center in Asheville, North Carolina, and the Bascom Center for Visual Arts in Highland, North Carolina. She has a solo exhibit planned in 2025 at Custom House Museum in Clarksville, Tennessee. Emily Baker.
Yeah, Emily's here.
Emily's here, and I had the pleasure of meeting Emily at the opening of the show. As soon as I saw Emily's work in the online folder, it was a yes. I loved the visual impact. And if you do get to see the gallery show, it's a nice, just wow moment. But to me, the work visually and then the conversations of the finding of the ductwork, I love the aspect of the finding, the collecting, the documenting, the displaying. Emily.
All right. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'll let Emily share at this moment because I know she has her own.
Okay. I think everyone can hear me.
Yes.
It's just like mandatory to do that these days.
I know.
Okay. So, my name's Emily Baker. I'm currently based in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm an assistant professor of sculpture at Georgia State University. I'm originally from California. And in 2019, I had the opportunity to do 7 months of artist residencies. And at the beginning of that residency, I visited an abandoned, bankrupt steel mill in upstate New York. It's the former site of Allegheny Ludlam Technologies. And I do want to say that I don't condone urban exploring. And I also view it as a highly privileged activity that anyways, I have mixed feelings about this, but actually doing it, I've been making a lot of work about this experience since, and I went back a lot of times. There's something about going back into this factory and recognizing things that I use every day in my life and seeing them as if time stood still. So this experience of seeing this place in this fashion was really jarring to me. And I visited about maybe 10 times total. And obviously, like, this sort of place attracts vandals, people who want to smash stuff, people who want to tag, a lot of drone or photographers. And as a metal worker, seeing things that I recognized in my daily life, and then also seeing them in this fashion was really striking. And as part of this experience, you can kind of see here that there were moments of life making its way back in. And this site actually was a Superfund site, and so it sat vacant from 2002 until this year. And so it was a hazardous waste site with leakage and not great, but I liked these moments of life reclaiming the site, you know, before the government could get to cleaning it up. And so in this image on the right is where I found all these archives and photographs. And if I hadn't had collected these, they would have been all thrown out, lost forever. So I felt this like weird duty to get as much as I could, and to ask questions later. And so within these archives that had been trashed, I found a lot of microphotographs of stainless steel. They were a company that produced specialty steel. But I also found photographs of the people who worked there and the products that they were making. So here's some photographs of the billets, and a lot of the photographs were cropped, and because they were more interested in the stuff and less interested in the people. But I do also have a lot of the negatives of the work, of the photographs. And so here's some of the photographs of billets in the train car getting ready to be distributed throughout the United States. And just like, God, that is so sexy. Like, I can't even, like, it's like so beautiful to me. And so these are some of the images that I found, and I have a weird desire to be included in this, which is another story for another time. But, and so I'm still trying to figure out what do I owe these photos and where do they live? And so I'm working through that. But one of the first times that I visited the site is where I found the ductwork. And so in this photograph, this was a little bit crazy to see after the fact, because these are the annealing kilns for heating, cooling the metal. You can see the billets in there. And I actually visited this same site, and this is how it looked before it was demoed this year. So it was kind of wild to see images of places that I had visited and like what it once looked like simultaneously. So this is the room that I found a lot of this ductwork in, and I just like had to preserve as much as possible. So the topped ductwork I did not take with me, but there was something like all of these patterns were done by hand, and they're like, I don't think that's the case anymore. And there's all these text and scribbles, and you can see them working their math out, and then they saved the template and they would label, because these were templates not for what they were producing, but these were templates to maintain their shop spaces and repair. And I thought it was really worth saving them. So every time I would go up, I would get as much as my arms could carry, and then I would leave, and then I'd be like, I have to go back and get more. So for me, displaying these, it's important to show as much of the writing as I could. And then I tried to display them as close as how I found them as possible. So I still kind of hurt a little bit for what I couldn't fully get, which is impossible. I'm one person, like, but it's still, I have an ache. And then to carry them across, this was what I had to carry them across, which is silly. And there's water on either side, and stupid. So that's like a better scale. And then once I got everything across my last trip, my friend who was with me said, like, Emily, don't look over here. And I thought it was going to be something horrible. But it was a footbridge, which I'll show you. So this is what once was there. And there's the footbridge that I didn't know was there, that I found out after I'd carried everything across, which, it's just kind of the way it goes sometimes. So that is my story of the work. And I call the piece Shouldering the Outmoded, because I had to physically carry all of these things over, and outmoded being a process that's no longer, that's sort of phasing its way out. And I do feel somewhat of a burden to these objects and to this story and to the site and to the people whose site was part of their lives. So that's where the title comes from. And I'm going to see if I can stop sharing. Great. Thanks for listening.
Nice.
Thank you, Emily. It was really good to hear that insight on the piece because I had no idea. So thank you.
And Emily's a gymnast slash former gymnast,
Mhm.
so I know that you did not have that much of a problem getting across that.
I mean, the scary part was
Bigger-
if I fell.
It's bigger than a balance beam.
It is bigger. I trained my whole life for it.
Yeah. This was the moment you were training for, Emily.
Here it is. Who'd have thought?
So thank you so much.
Yep, to save some duck work.
Yeah.
Next we have Francis Akosah.
Akosah.
And Akosah.
Yeah.
Thanks. And we wanted even another piece of yours also, but I think it was too large.
Yeah.
But I loved how undeniably African they were and your exploration of different materials. So that was some of my intrigue there.
Okay, so first and foremost, I would like to say a big thank you to the MSA board members, and also a big thank you to my Professor Jason Brown, who has been supporting me massively. So I'm Francis Akosah, born and raised in Ghana, West Africa, and I grew up in the rural space. And I'm a sculptor who is a multifaceted in terms of culture and material investigation. My artistic identity is defined by the seamless integration of diverse materials, including metal, leather, wood, fabric, clay, plaster, and found object. So my artwork likely include a variety of mediums and techniques, texture and symbolic imagery to convey themes of resilience, transformation, and hope. So my artwork usually comes in 2- and 3-dimensional art forms. So in my artistic expression, I use symbols to celebrate a rich cultural tapestry that defines the African experience. So each symbol is deliberate act of storytelling that draws from my childhood memories of Africa symbology. So I use cloth, burlaps, and other textiles as a canvas to create a textile exploration of tradition and contemporary expression. So I seek to preserve and celebrate the diversity of voice that forms a mosaic in the African continent. So at the core of my artistic endeavor is a celebration of identity. I delve into Reservoir of African heritage to invoke a sense of pride, belonging, and connection to share past and present. So sustainability is also guiding principle in my artistic practice. I embrace materials like the burlap and the cloth to engage in a dialogue about responsible art making and then consumption. So my art is an invitation to dialogue, reflection, and understanding. So it invites voice to explore the layers of meaning embedded in each symbol and texture, and also decipher the language that communicates the soul of African heritage. So in this exchange, I hope to foster a deeper appreciation for the diversity and richness of the African experience. So basically, that's what this piece is about. And then my other piece that I couldn't show. And I'm sorry I couldn't bring the other piece because it was too big and then my car was too small. So I couldn't bring it down there. So I'm hoping I'm hoping next time I'm gonna just rent a big truck and then put it in and then just bring it to the gallery.
It happens. But thank you. It's a beautiful
Sure.
piece.
Thanks so much.
Oh, I have install shots. I should have moved along while you were talking. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
Michael cannot join us today. So if Courtney, if you could take over on that one. Francis, we don't need you renting too many more big trucks. I've seen what happens when you
Okay. I think I'll just buy a big truck.
yeah.
So Michael Baggarly is an associate professor of art at Middle Tennessee State University, where he teaches sculpture and 3D design. He lives and works in Murfreesboro, Tennessee with his wife Melody and 2 children, Kaya and Kadrin. Michael earns a BFA Magna Cum Laude from Western Kentucky University in 1998 and MA MFA degrees from University of Iowa in 2001 and 2002. As an Iowa Art Fellowship recipient, his art has been exhibited nationally and internationally in juror and invitational exhibitions. As an artist, Michael is drawn to a range of materials, working between cast iron, complex steel, wood fabrication, and 3D printed mixed media provides him a range of options to address his conceptual interest. My work, or his work, is the direct manifestation of attempts at gaining a semblance of understanding and placement within a world that I'm often at odds with. This conflict is mirrored in combining cast and digitally fabricated materials with large spikes, thorns, and quills. The protruding sharp points are visually graceful, beautiful, and dangerous. They are instantly offensive and defensive in how they amass upon the exterior. Points serve as a manifestation of my words and frustration as a pull-out exterior provocations. As I pull back from the things that terrify me and lie beyond my ability to affect, the barb's ability to pull the viewer parallels my struggle in finding equilibrium between the two extremes. That's a really nice install shot.
Mm-hmm. Nope. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And
Allison's work.
Allison is here. So
Awesome. It is so fun. Like, thank you for making work like this. We also included the 2D collage. Would you call it a collage?
Mm-hmm.
Of the flowers. I'm a fibers artist at heart. I love the fibers, and I just thought it was fun. I thought it was going to be fun to play with the floor placement, imagining the ways that sculpture can interact in space.
Thank you. I'm glad that it's fun. I always want my work to sort of toe that line between humor and the sort of stark realities that the work is usually about. Generally, my work, the sort of like funnier that it looks, is sort of more humorous, the more like tragic it usually is. So maybe, Cassidy, if you want to go to the collage, I'll sort of start there. I know that sort of sculptures like materials, and then I'll break everybody's hearts about the actual piece. So I have this 2D side of my work where if anybody ever took like color theory in undergrad, where you're using the color aid paper, it's like that screen printed super flat. That's what I make all of my collages out of. So it's this super flat paper that's all hand cut. This one's quite large. I think this was like maybe an 18 by 24. As a sculptor, it's a really nice way for me to sketch and plan my pieces out. Because as I'm sort of making physical objects, and then instead of having to redraw something 1,000 times, I can move them around sort of ever so slightly. And then I'm always thinking about the construction end of it. Because I know that I always struggle with sort of like making a drawing and then trying to translate that into a sculpture. So that's sort of how that work functions, and the way that I'm thinking through pieces and sort of doing all of the troubleshooting in the collages before I move them forward. And Cassidy, if you wouldn't mind going back to the, thank you. Maybe to the previous, yeah. So this work, all of my work, is really about the sort of soul-crushing banalities of what many people term women's work. And I always wanted to be funny, but funny with this serrated edge. I'm often thinking about these aspects of like historical pink collar, second shift labor. And then this work in particular is about, you know, this sort of fever dream and a longing for a fantasy life, and thinking about the cognitive dissonance between layers of realities and tumult within American homes, and this sort of layers of attraction and revulsion. When you look at the work at first, you're just like, it's bright and it's shiny, and you get closer and that sort of shiny facade starts to fall away. So the flowers are made of silicone and they sort of look nice. Then you get up close and they have this weird skin-like texture to it, and that sort of like candy-colored facade falls apart, and it looks a little grotesque and a little corporeal, and almost like wrinkled skin. I always want to have this sort of like surrealistic sensation in the work, thinking about recognition and discombobulation. So the scale's ever so slightly off. This chair is like larger than a real chair would be. And I'm often thinking about, or I'm always thinking about class in my work. More recently, I've started to address it with a little bit more of a laser focus, but I've said that my sort of working class, working poor background comes through in really just my tastes and material choices. Like I always say, I am trashy and I like shiny things and sparkly things and nacho cheese, and that's just kind of who I am. And I think that comes through in the work, the best of the Joann's clearance bins that I can find. This particular piece is about really about violence in the home. And I'm trying to take these objects and neuter them of all of their use and ability. So this chair, that we want to understand it as this sort of like structurally sound object, but to sort of make it flaccid and neuter it so that no matter what you do, that chair is always going to sort of slouch and fall and break, which would be the impetus for the piece. But then there's this aspect of hope in these flowers that still feel wilted and damaged and somewhat decay, and this sort of like toxic sludge quality that they're made out of, so that there's that element of hope. And when we're thinking about those cycles of tumult within the home, sort of that breaking of the thing and then the flowers that come after, and then having the flowers wilting. So it's this sort of token of maybe hope and rebirth, but having them ultimately wilting, and since they're made out of silicone, in this sort of perpetual state of wilt. And I think the gesture becomes really important in the work as well. Sort of in this photograph, it's that just sort of like crushed under its own weight, and this already broken object, sort of again suffering under the weight of, you know, what one might term an apology.
And I had the great opportunity of installing this piece at the MSA Open at our last confab. And it was so nice to feel that tactileness of the actual flowers versus just seeing it in the photo. And the beer was fun too. They were packed together, but anyway.
They're like these little sort of like wiggly noodle girls that sort of flop around. And sometimes, like when I always like the silicone pieces, because if you walk by the work, if the floor has any wobble in it, the pieces kind of shake a bit.
It's always fun to have that movement. Thank you, Allison.
Of course.
I also like shiny things, and this work, I mean, it just made me feel like bits of found, collected, lost, you know, they came together for this moment of being, I don't know what they are, but I don't know, Chris can tell us. This is Chris Collins.
Hi, thank you. Really, I think you kind of boiled it down pretty good there. They just kind of came together. And that's kind of a lot of what this kind of work is about. First, an intro to me, I'm a sculptor, originally from Alabama. I spent most of my working life in the West. I've lived and worked in Santa Fe, New Mexico as a foundry artisan, worked in the cast metal industry. So that's kind of my background and education, and eventually ended up in Los Angeles. And that's where this work kind of took hold. For a long time, in my early days, I was making sculpture by cutting and pasting things together. I had a little bit of a background as a DJ in the late end of the rave scene in the 90s. So the idea of the remix was heavy influence on me, hip hop, sampling, taking these bits and pieces and making something new. And then I had kind of gotten off into just more conceptual work with these singular objects. And then it wasn't until this body of work that I kind of came back to that way of working, of cutting and pasting, kind of with a more maturity, but different from another standpoint, thinking of it maybe in the tradition of like William Burroughs cut ups, like allowing these kind of things to just slap them together. In this work particularly, I've worked with broken glass for many years, starting in New Mexico, and that's where these were sourced. Like the base of this was constructed of a shot up windshield that I'd found in the desert. And I originally started using that material. I would find it in the desert. I'd found a lot of televisions, windows, all kinds of broken things. And it captured that moment of violent destruction. It's kind of like this iconoclastic kind of movement to go out and shoot your TV in the desert, I guess. And it kind of evolved out of that. And I've used the broken glass for all of this time. But then in this body of work particularly, I started to splice things together with it. So I pulled from my mold library of I've used a lot of electronics and things like that, a lot of technological objects. I'm really a found object artist at heart. I work with found stuff. I don't really sculpt anything new. So in this work particularly, I was removing facets of this broken windshield and replacing it with these mechanical elements and then recasting it in stainless steel. So through the lost wax process. So this body of work particularly, I focused on, even though these parts were sourced not in LA, but it was of LA. A lot of the other bronzes included masks and these other bits and pieces, especially post-COVID. And at that point in time, I think broken glass kind of started to take on new meanings. Always used as a metaphor for like violence and destruction, and it just has so much built into it as a symbol. But now it also post-COVID kind of had a whole new meaning with this kind of fracturing of our society in ways, fracturing of our own egos or whatever, and kind of exploring that in these kind of the pieces that make us up. So, and that's a little bit of a floppy disk that I had molded and put into the broken glass. So it's just kind of, these works particularly were like painstakingly cut out and then re-put back together and then cast. So, and I'm still continuing to kind of work in that mode. And these were presented along with some collages and some other works that all kind of rely on that perspective of, if you're not familiar with the William Burroughs cut up, where he would start to cut up poetry and start to put it back together and rearrange it. And it really kind of opens up new creative possibilities and really can kind of shine a light maybe on our subconscious that kind of peeks through these actions. And as he said, when you cut into the present, the future spills out. So in my work very much is related to these kind of objects of future past. Like what do we leave behind? I'm very engaged in that. You being into reuse art here, and I'm always digging around and rooting around in different ruins and no telling what. So I have a lot of stuff. So that's kind of what that's about.
Thank you. Is Kurt here?
I don't think Kurt ended up joining us, so we can just read the bio, unfortunately.
I'm gonna read the bio. He's currently Dyrhaug. Kurt Dyrhaug, is that what we're going with?
Yeah.
I have bad pronunciation skills, everyone, so I apologize is currently a professor and distinguished faculty research fellow at Lamar University, where he teaches sculpture, 3D design, and 3D printing. Dyrhaug earned his Master's of Fine Art degree from the University of Minnesota, 1993, and his Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree from Minneapolis College of Art and Design, 1989. Dyrhaug has been an artist in resident at the Altair House Heisman in Heisman, Germany, and in the Foundation Torres Pujas in Coram, Spain. He currently coordinates the International Symposium, Cast Metal and 3D Printing at the Altair House Heisman Residency in Germany, and co-chaired the 2022 International Conference on Contemporary Cast Iron Art in Berlin, Germany. He sounds like someone you want to be friends with if you do cast iron. I picked these 2D pieces that are basically, drawings of his 3D pieces I loved the starkness of the rust on the paper, and playing, with that versus actually seeing, the 3D piece. I thought they were beautiful renderings.
Yeah, as somebody who wasn't able to see the show in person and just saw the images, I'm sitting here trying to figure out, I'm like, what is this that I'm looking at? But yeah.
And I'm assuming he has a technique where he's, oxidating, figuring out how to rust and oxidate his surfaces. But it looks fun. I wish he could tell us more about it.
Kurt did a really fantastic workshop at SLOS. I think it was at SLOS, must have been the national conference, where I took the workshop. So he was layering using like sand and gesso to build up those flat volumes on the page, and then using this iron paint from Sculpt Nouveau or Complete Sculptor. So it's basically iron pigments suspended in a paint body, and then putting those on and then rusting those in layers too. It's a really awesome process. And if you're ever at a conference where Kurt's doing that workshop, I really recommend it. It was fun.
Awesome. Thank you for that addition, Allison. That's helpful.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Amy is another one that is teaching right now, so cannot join us. So
Hoagland? Amy
Yeah.
Hoagland? All right. Create sculptural installations about the human relationship with nature. She received her BFA from the University of Kentucky in 2016 and her MFA in sculpture from the University of Colorado Boulder in 2022. She's a recipient of the 2022 Wingate Fellowship for Sustainable Art, presented by Honoring the Future. Amy has completed residencies with the Arctic Circle Program, Mountain Research Station in Nurland, Colorado, MARPA Foundation in MARPA, Nepal, Casa Lu in Mexico City, Firehouse Art Center in Longmont, Colorado, and the Tallgrass Prairie Preserve in Mayfield Green, Kansas. Amy recently had several solo exhibits as a visiting artist for Kentucky College of Art and Design in 2019, as well as the Firehouse Art Center and Arbor Institute in 2021. In 2024, Amy will have a solo exhibit with Rue Gallery in Marv, Texas. And she has exhibited internationally in Mexico City and nationally, including Los Angeles, Austin, Denver, Portland. She currently resides in Denver. Okay, artist statement. Were you going to say something?
Oh, no, go for it.
All right, I'm going to go for it. We're going to know all about Amy.
I'm ready.
Sculptural installation. Embrace the entanglement that humans have with their more than human surroundings. These installations challenge the varying relationships that humans have with nature, particularly the perception that nature is outside of human society. And appropriative natural forms such as rocks and icebergs by skewing their scales in digital spaces. This process inherently produces tension in the translation from analog to digital and then back to analog. Technology is utilized as a tool to connect the natural and manufactured world. Materials such as glass, metal, and cardboard are vehicles for my concept, Amy's concept. Amy is interested in the hierarchies that we set as humans and investigate these boundaries to understand why they have come into existence. With a greater understanding of positions within nature, an empathetic link can be formed. Empathy is not only needed, but is crucial in this time of a landscape demanding human change. Hear, hear.
All right. So Sherri is with us.
Yay.
Hi.
I'm excited not to talk for a minute.
Oh, okay.
It's all you,
For a
Sherri.
minute. Okay.
For a
So this,
minute.
yeah,
5
this
minutes.
piece is beadwork, and the forms are originally carved out of styrofoam and then covered with layers of concrete. So over the years, I've worked with a lot of different media, and I've worked with clay. And so I've imposed some of those same techniques on these pieces. I used a sgraffito technique. So it's all about timing, because whenever you're working with concrete, you're on concrete time. You don't have a do-over if the time has passed. So I'm carving into it and adding pastes that have different pigments mixed into them, into the different lines. I feel very fortunate. I want to thank you, Courtney. I want to thank MSA and MTSU. When I have the opportunity to do a personal piece, I've some of the artists that are exhibiting right now are teaching, and some, we all have different means of how we've been able to support our habits over the years. And I've been very fortunate in that I've done a lot of public commissions. So I have to listen to a lot of people to come up with a piece that engages me, but also meets their goals for their institution or organization. But when I'm working on a piece like this, I get to really shift my focus and think about different things. And the process is a delight for me to see what's going to emerge. A lot of my personal work depends on what I call planned randomness. And I'm just working to see what's going to happen if I do this at this point in time and then do that. And I think beadwork is a good example of that. I do like the idea that they are, for me, beads. I worked on a lot of stacked vertical sculptures. And I like the fact that I can really focus in on a smaller piece and think about the details, and then how it relates to another small piece to create something that's a larger statement. That's what I have.
Sherri, may I ask, what is the material that is holding this all together?
It's a rubber cord.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So,
I just wanted to make
yeah,
sure.
I like to combine unexpected materials with the concrete. One, that it's light enough that it's being suspended in space, and that's because of the foam core allows me to work with thin skins of concrete, but then combining it with the rubber and the rubber washers.
Thank you so much. It looks really great in the install photos in the space.
It does. And I love a shadow moment when you
so many of my pieces, the shadow is for me just as rewarding as the finished piece.
Yes.
And when people were talking about drawings, I mean, this actually did emerge from a series of drawings. And I really like that conversation going back and forth, just like Allison with the 2D to the 3D, and how much information you can gain from one, but then still elaborate on that with the other.
I love this piece, Sherri. It's so beautiful. And I'm a concrete girl too, and this is just, it's stunning, and it looks so light in the space. Like, it's amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sherri.
Thank you.
Next, we have Esra Kanisicak. And I really enjoyed just the move. Like, I do feel like we were experiencing underwater, ocean, this movement, suspension. And so this is protruding out into the gallery space. I don't know, at least 4-5 feet is Esra.
5 feet, yeah.
5 feet, about 5 feet, yes. So has a beautiful effect in the gallery space. And so I was very intrigued to include it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for including me. I feel very honored to be part of this exhibition. I'm in Cincinnati. I'm actually from Turkey, a Mediterranean country, and 20 years ago, before I moved here, I used to teach scuba diving, and I'm deeply in love with the ocean and the water. And then after coming here, raising my kids, I went back to school because art was always a part of me, and I was painting at home by myself, abstract painting, and I went to art school for that. Immediately switched to sculpture. So I'm a new sculptor around 4 years, and MSA came to my town, Cincinnati, around that time. And so I've been following this organization and feel I'm very happy to be included in this wonderful group show. So my work is about the ocean. It's mostly about ocean conservation. A lot of my work, I incorporate, it's mixed media. I incorporate the ghost nets that are salvaged from the water into ceramics or wood or bronze or mixed media sculptures. This piece I came about kind of, it was on a side. It was when I picked up some wood for a project. I had this piece of poplar and I didn't use it. I went with the other woods and I was working, but that was standing right by my desk and I kept looking at it, and it has this beautiful grain. And I was mesmerized by the way it looks like water. And I kept looking at it and looking at it. And I just one day picked it up and started grinding away with the wood grain and came up with this piece. And I decided to install it this way because it's called Dire Straits. Dire Straits kind of has this imminent, desperate meaning. It's like a narrow passage, and it ends abruptly. It's also kind of disruptive because it flows into the space, and it speaks to the crisis of the oceans. And with my work, I try to bring it to our sphere of empathy because it's kind of out of sight. It's underwater. We don't really connect when we don't see it unless we're actually there. So that's what my hope is, to bring marine life into our sphere of empathy and ignite a desire to change how we live with a consumption-based relationship with materials. And that's all.
Thank you. Brian Melton. I think Brian is here.
Brian is here. Sorry, I was muted and couldn't get it.
Brian's here. I enjoyed this piece with the sort of mix of a very traditional portraiture, but also there's like a love, like an honoring, and I do believe it is his mother-in-law, juxtaposed with and maybe you could speak to this, Brian, but I made assumptions that this was a found base, but you could have made the base. But I thought it was lovely.
Brian.
You unmute. Can you unmute?
Are we there now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I've been having trouble with my audio. So I guess I'll be honest, I'm looking around at this and I'm looking around at all the people on here and I'm super intimidated right now because I'm seeing so much amazing work and I'm really thankful to be part of this exhibition. So I appreciate that. Speaking about the work, I'm a self-taught wood carver who started with spoons 5 years ago and carving on my back porch. And then a little 7x11 section of my garage I taped off and put a curtain up. And then it just progressed because I finally found something that merged all these artistic tendencies that I've always had and actually kept my attention for once. And I don't know, it's just, I love it. So that's why I do it. This piece is actually salvaged white pine, and then it is carved in a pretty expressive style. I like to leave the heavy gouge marks. I like the look of a maker's hand on the piece. There's just something kind of special about that to me. The base is scrap wood, actually, that I found and salvaged or used little pieces and cut off. And my process is a little bit backwards. I tried for a long time to explain concepts in an academic way, and that just always felt fake for me. But my mother always said that she thought that I would end up merging my writing with my work. So I don't even really listen to music anymore when I'm in my studio. I just carve and let it flow and let the concept kind of come naturally, organically. I guess it grows the same way the tree does. So this piece, it was carved at a time when my wife was having some health complications, and my mother-in-law had come to live with us for a month, and it just ended up looking like her, and I went with it, and maybe it was just a subconscious thing, but at the same time, I was thinking about Lunar New Year and how our family dons a hanbok and just keeps these amazing and beautiful traditions alive, like the 100th day. Infant mortality rate was pretty high in Korea years ago, so they celebrate the 100th day with a big party. And sorry. And so it was just something that was special to me. And like I said, I've never been very good at putting the concepts into words. I think I cut out for a second. Sorry, I told you I was having some trouble with my computer. It keeps jumping on and off. But it's just something that was special to me, and I've always had trouble putting the concepts into words. So I've always liked to write, and I would kind of just make up the story in my head, and I decided to just go with it. Mom always said she thought I'd merge the two, so I thought, well, I guess I always have from the beginning, and it's probably easier for me just to read the free verse that I write after the piece is completed than it is for me to really explain it, if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's short. Funny how life will sometimes allow you to hold hands around a table that wasn't yours to begin with. I'm sure glad I got to sit at this one to be welcomed as kin. I'll never be uninspired by this act of remembrance. Even the soup feels natural here, the only place that feels natural. Gently ties the silk around the waist. She bows to guests. Mine is pink. It doesn't quite fit my shoulders, but I'm proud to wear my cousin's hand-me-downs, be included. She always smiles when she has it on. For some reason, she only wears it a couple times a year. If I were her, I'd wear it more often instead of wrapping it back up in the cloth with a little embroidered stitching that I can't read, tying it with a ribbon. Maybe it would lose its place, though, if it became everyday casual wear. She knows better than I do. I'm just happy that she takes the time to keep traditions from fading into little more than black and white and sepia tone photographs. Thank you, Mama. So what I do is I start carving, and then a story will come into my mind, and afterward I'll just sit down and just kind of stream of consciousness, write about it. And it takes the sculpture and turns it into a piece of tangible literature. And I teach English in my day job. I was grading essays before the call. And I don't know, I've just always loved to write. So merging the two just felt really natural for me.
That's beautiful.
Mhm. And Brian, you were in the, oh, sorry, you were in the 2022 Select show too. I saw this piece and I immediately was like, I know who made that. Oh, I've talked to him before on these online talks. So it was good to see another one of yours in one of our exhibitions. So
You're like
I'm very
old
thankful to
school. You're old school now. You've done it 2 years. You're vetted.
It's
I also
a lot
wonder.
of beautiful doors have been opened, and I'm thankful for them.
I also feel that way, but also like the art world has always made, I think that's the magic of art is anyone can join. And as long as you're trying to be true and honest to yourself, everyone, it can accept you.
Appreciate it.
and there it is in the space. Thank you, Brian. So Ross is also
you.
here with us. Yeah.
Ross Jr., I'm gonna try your last name. Owusu?
Owusu.
Owusu?
Just try and pronounce it as the alphabets, are arranged. Owusu.
Owusu.
Yeah.
I felt like your work was another like just star of the show. It looked gorgeous on the floor.
Thank you.
When I first saw them, I automatically, and you didn't give too much. I do love the fact that everyone is able to talk about their work, or you can learn more about the artist in this process of juring. But to me, they felt very like sort of traditional, like a traditional sort of sacred like holding of so I don't know if you have what they mean to you or where they originate.
Oh, okay. So thank you all for the time and the opportunity to be part of this great show and this great community of colleagues, artists, friends. My work is actually a multi-layer of concepts, a multi-layer of responses. And what I do as an artist is I have engulfed myself in several things that expounds on my fear of visa status, my fear of life after school, my fear of my skin color as a person in a different diaspora. And what I also sometimes put in my work is my cultural binder, or the things that hold me together whilst I find myself displaced and in a different place altogether. So this particular work talks about here I am, where do I go next, or here I am, where do I go next to, or the next place that I have to go. And I believe that migration is just not about Black people. Migration is an everyday thing that individually objects and humans, or objects and subjects, undergo through. And I would put my work in that narrative that the dynamism of my work is not one that is static. It is something that changes alongside the installation. So this work talks about what I would do after school, or what I'm hoping to do after school, because most of the time when I go outside there and people are just asking me a lot of questions, the very common question that comes is, so what are you going to do after school? Are you going to go back home? Like, what is your plan? And these questions always put that kind of fear in me that, am I just going to go through all this, and what is next? It's like I'm always asking that question. And in my culture, there's a saying that says, where we sit doesn't matter, but what we talk about is the importance of our gathering. So incorporating that layer into this work, my work is just about the inconveniences of sitting, because if I should offer this is in a way like a seat, but it's a land. So it's like trying to settle on a land, but that land has the potential of moving. So in the culture of America, if I offer any of you this seat or this work to sit on, you are going to ask a lot of questions. You are going to have a lot of fear. And that is the base objective of the work, for you to have that interaction with the work and question the fear of you sitting on this and be like, oh, what if I break it? So all these questions that you ask yourself are the same questions that I'm also asking myself whilst I am in this place. Am I going to settle comfortably? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? So my work is just about my responses with my environment, how I find myself, I wouldn't say lost, but confused in this vast diaspora, and what I fear to lose culturally and what I'm going to assimilate whilst I'm here. How this kind of responses can also change me. So these are layers that I work with, and I also metaphorically work with different clay bodies, different glazes, just to physically experiment on the behavior of clay, just as human beings and their environment. So that is what my work and this kind of work is about.
Beautiful. Nicole Stanley. Is Nicole with us? Hi.
Yes, hello.
I adored this work. We had multiple pieces in the gallery. To me, they were these chunks. They were these chunks of the new world and a new way of thinking and being, and a new language and to consider.
So my work is about dyslexia. So I'm highly dyslexic to a great extent. It affects my everyday life, but these pieces are words that I've messed up, simple words that everyone, like close or fuck, like all of those words are like in normal people's brains. Mine, I miss a letter, maybe two, in how to spell them. So I wanted to create work about that kind of thing. So all of the words are misspelt and how I think they should be spelt in certain ways and times. I used cardboard to create my forms. I like to use things that are just easy to manipulate and transform into like different type of look. I like using iron and doing cloth and all of those type of things. So with this body of work, I was just trying to bring awareness to dyslexia and tell people that they're not alone in in messing up words or letters or things of that nature. It's a bigger thing of like, you're not alone when you mess up certain things. Everyone does. So yeah. But yeah.
They were like the rocks on the new world, where new
Yes.
shapes to consider.
I first started off with the shapes too. I kind of had them laying around for about like 4 months. And I work at a school. So I work at the University of Southern Mississippi as a technician. So I sometimes have time to work on my own stuff. Sometimes I don't. And these were just forms hanging out. And I saw some pieces on dyslexia and I was like, I need to face my fears of actually touching this subject. As one of my bosses actually says, you need to make work about what you're afraid of. So this is something that is kind of fearful for me. So I made work about it and it seems to be doing really, really well. So thank you for having them in the show. Appreciate it.
Of course. And Nicole, thank you for coming back to one of our MSA onlines. I've had
Not a problem
with you before, so it's good to see you again.
You too. Yes. Yeah.
Sweet. And I love that making the work that sort of intimidates you. But like, I think this is so powerful and that so many people will feel related to it, especially in academia. you know, where we're
Yeah.
you want us to be more professional and
Yeah. Well,
Back
I
against
use
it.
Grammarly. It's a great thing, but I was like, still, people are like, well, you spelled this wrong. And it's like, yeah, well, I've told you I'm dyslexic, so yeah, we gotta roll with this here, okay? Nothing can be perfect. I'm sorry. It's not how I work.
And I love hearing what the material is, that it's cardboard mixed with resin and all these other things. Because whenever I first saw it, like off the bat, I was like, oh, ceramics. But
Yeah.
not at all.
I like to manipulate things, like make aluminum look like bronze, or aluminum look like iron. Yeah, I like to make people question what exactly it is. So it's fun, I think.
So much.
Thank you.
So this is our alien of the show, Christina Vasquez. It was a beautiful piece to see in person. It does have a sound aspect.
Oh.
It loves to be photographed. We had a moment together. I'm interested in hearing about your technique and your material choice and sort of how you, how you art.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh,
Hey.
Are you able to see me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Hi, I'm Christina Vasquez. I am an artist, a sculptor in Dallas, Texas. I'm currently going to the University of North Texas, and this is Chrome Baby. So it is a sound sculpture. The inside of it is hollow with a speaker, and it is made primarily of cardboard and found foam and a lot of other and paper pulp. Yeah. So with my work, I try to challenge myself with what I have on hand. Because I go to the University of North Texas and I work with other students, I have access to a lot of excess material that would otherwise be thrown away. So lots of foam and wood, cardboard, packaging materials. And it's just, really, really cheap. Just be like, oh, we pick this up and make something with it. And also very fun to see what I can do. I love making things look luxurious and a little bit gaudy, even though it's just what some people would consider trash. So yeah, and then the inside of it, the music is from an album from the 70s. It's called Fantasia. I was originally going to use a song made by MF Doom. It's called Coffin Nails, which is kind of like a psychedelic funk kind of pop rock type song, which I'm inspired to make this sculpture look very alien, very plant-like, very familiar, but also out of place in a gallery space. And for me, I think aliens listen to like funk, pop music, something really psychedelic. And my friend introduced me to the album Plantasia, which has a it's a music made for plants, so it has a very much fits in that vibe. If you get a chance to listen to it, I highly recommend. So yeah, thank you so much.
And we had youth in the show asking what the soundtrack was. I don't know if Chelsea got back to you. Her daughter was trying to find out what it was. She was very intrigued.
Yes, Plantasia. It's awesome.
Christina, you are also the documentation on this with the lighting, so good. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
But you are the last artist that is in person. So Chris is not here today as well. And then after that, I'll give it a little thank you. But
I'll read Chris's bio then. Chris Wubbena holds an MFA in Art and Sculpture emphasis from San Francisco State University and a BFA in Art with a Sculpture emphasis and Creative Writing minor from the University of Northern Iowa. He is currently a professor of sculpture at Southeastern Missouri State University. His work has been exhibited in outdoor and indoor exhibitions throughout the United States, including the Chicago Sculpture Exhibit, Speaking While Listening, the Armory Gallery at Virginia Tech. I'm going to skip over all these accolades. New Orleans Triennial in 2005. Arkansas Art Center, Little Arkansas, where we received the Grand Award for the public sculpture titled Spirit of Now, commissioned for the American House in Oak Park, Illinois in 2022. The term "in the midst of things" refers to the literary device of beginning a narrative work in the middle of the plot. Each small-scale sculpture in this series exists within the moment of its aggregated materials, diving into wandering storylines and intertextual interpretations. Individual sculptures are created mainly with an admix of materials found around the house or discovered in the act of everyday existence. With the inclusion of recognizable models and toys, the viewer is invited to lose oneself within the eclectic and intimate objects, multimedia spaces, found materials, and shifting forms to find crossroads of experiences and worlds within worlds. Residing in each sculpture are small QR codes with various areas of composition, allowing anyone with a digital device to access inner and outer worlds of short stories, scripts, auditions, audio compositions, and videos, encouraging the viewer to read, watch, or listen while in the presence of the sculpture, or to explore later. Such access into the compositions provides an expansive space to enter new dimensions of experience and a widening range of perspectives, styles, and voices. Reminiscent of Atlas holding the sky for eternity, or Cartidius supporting architectural or cultural structures for prosperity. The sculpture in this exhibit pulls together everything in their disposal by any means necessary, drawing attention to the things in our everyday lives and their contemporary environmental, social, and political meanings. Each sculpture's shifting tectonics of experience and memories reminds us of the beautiful simplicity of the moment and the complexities of the multivalent world, where we are always in the present, continuous tense of being aware, and we are always in the midst of things.
All right. So that is everyone who's included in the exhibition. The exhibition is up until Friday, so February 23rd. I think this is a good way to start that close out of it by hearing everybody's take on their work. It is up at MTSU in the TODD Art Gallery in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So please, if you have a chance, go view it in the next couple of days. If not, here are some install shots. I want to thank all the artists for joining us today, as well as Courtney. Thank you for the heavy work here of reading everything and mispronouncing things so I don't have to. I appreciate
did it for you.
But thank you all again. It was phenomenal to hear from you and hear more about the pieces included in the show. So
can I end with just on my whole theme of challenging the artist and sculptors to make work that respects and honors resources, and encouraging students and the young to think about how they are approaching their resources. We are the change makers, and I love that we have the ability to make art out of anything and challenge ourselves. So thank you for giving me this platform for the moment.
All right, I went ahead and